the Dialed In Angling podcast presented by OnX Fish, Fish USA, Skidoo, Runnings, Minnesota DNR, Strike Master, 13 Fishing, L&M Fleet Supply, and DeWalt. Well, welcome back to this episode. We appreciate you tuning in each and every week. I am super pumped that we are not only on the ice, but on the ice in a lot of locations. You're going to want to stay tuned all season long. We're going to have current ice conditions, fishing reports from the experts. On this particular podcast, we've got a bunch of fishing reports from guides all over, from Lake of the Woods. We've got guides checking in from Ottertail, South Dakota, Marcus Quam, North Dakota. I love it. I love the fact that they're not only checking ice conditions, they're out there fishing already. So we're going to have a full fishing report. I know me personally, I've been all over the map. I've been fishing in a lot of different locations since we left the St. Paul Ice Show. It was awesome being down at the show last Friday, seeing everybody down at the show, seeing how the buzz of the show was everything ice. You know, when you get a season like this where we go from fall to winter almost immediately, and not only just fall to winter, but fall to having tons of ice, it was great to see. And everybody that came in the booth seemed to be excited. People were buying. People were excited about all the new products out there. I was pumped to be in the booth. We did the podcast from the show, and here we are today. I can tell you that since I've left the show, I have been on 7 or 8 different bodies of water. I've fished 4 different species, and I am loving life. And I am completely impressed with how much ice we've made in just a matter of a week. As a matter of fact, we are sitting recording on the shores of Lake Mille Lacs right now. I'm joined once again by my guest, Chris Britton of Rapala. Chris and I, I always ask Chris, like, hey, you want to do a little scouting with me? Or, hey, I got this lake. You want to go check it out? A lot of Dialed In Angling episodes, I've got to do a ton of scouting. Things change from year to year, even from season to season. Lakes that I fished in the open water, I have an idea of what kind of fish are in there, but I don't know if that carries over. Sometimes early ice, you have noise factors. You have, obviously this year I was worried about ice conditions. And so before I talk about our outing here on Mille Lacs with Chris and I just want to give a special shout out to Remington of Elite Angling Outdoor Adventures. Remington is an awesome dude. He's a great friend. Remington Moran from Walker. I called him down at the ice show and I said, hey man, I'm going to be down at the ice show. I'm not going to have a ton of time to do any sort of, checking of ice conditions. Would you get a jump start on it for me? And, he completely agreed to do a jump start and, went out there checking ice with spud bars, and he was checking a couple different locations. I wasn't quite sure where we were going to film, but I knew it was going to be in northern Minnesota. At least we were going to start in northern Minnesota, and, where we end up, you never know. But Remington was just opened arms, just decided to just jump in and, help me out. And that's what good friends are for. You need a lot of friends and guides and friends that are fishermen to lean on. Like, if you have friends that love to ice fish, usually there's a network of people you work with. Me, I'm no different. I have a network of guides that I work with. We all kind of lean on each other as far as fishing reports. We love talking fishing. I know there's about 3 or 4 guys, including Nick Sakella, Mitch Hackemuller, and Remington now that, I sort of lean on a lot of times, where we just talk fishing or we talk about different bites that are going on, different things that are exciting in the fishing industry. It could be electronics or how we rig our boats or how we set up our otters or whatever it may be. But friends like that, where you can call on them and can sort of lean on them as far as, hey, what do you got going for a bite? What are you seeing? What are you seeing for ice conditions? That is really important early ice. And it's always good to have a buddy system. Me talking about these great ice conditions doesn't mean there isn't safe ice out there. And so having sort of that network of friends and buddy systems to lean on and friends you can count on to go in with you. I know this weekend the temperatures are going to be extremely cold. And so venturing out on new bodies of water that aren't staked, going to new lakes that you haven't tried yet this year, you might want to hold off until after this weekend. It looks like this weekend's really going to shear things up. The snow impact is not as bad as I thought, especially here on Mille Lacs Lake. I know Mille Lacs got anywhere from 5 to 7 inches. Kind of the bulk of the snow seemed to be from like western Minnesota, let's say Fargo, through Walker, all the way down to Mille Lacs, and then out towards, I would say, Aiken to Duluth. That seemed to be the bulk of where the snow hit. But being on Mille Lacs, I was pretty surprised we didn't have a lot of snow. There virtually was only a few inches. Yes, there was areas where there was kind of blown up ice, where there was some snow that had gathered there, but way less than I had assumed based on what I was what had happened at my house when I was plowing. When I was plowing, I thought, oh man, we're going to have slush conditions and all this. That doesn't seem to be the case. We're getting fishing reports right now from all over the place: Ottertail, Walker, Winnebagosh, Lake of the Woods, Red Lake. No one is experiencing anything like that. No slush problems. Matter of fact, Lake of the Woods and Red Lake are probably your best bets if you're going to get out this weekend and you plan on traveling, let's say with UTVs, an enclosed cab Ranger or Can-Am. That is going to be your best bet as far as getting out, staying warm, and getting to your locations and staying on staked paths. Now, down at Mille Lacs, all the resorts are working on staked paths as well. So let's get into the Mille Lacs fishing report. I don't have a ton to report just because we were mainly checking ice, but we were doing a little fishing out there. Caught some walleye, some perch. I know up on the north end, it seems like Red Door, they're out staking. They've got safe paths to certain areas. Hunters Point, there's a lot of people on the main lake that are staking out paths right now. I know down in the southern bays, people have safe paths as well. Chris Britton, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me again.
Love having you on, Chris. You're always up for an adventure, and when it comes to early ice checking, it's less glamorous than just going out with your buddies after a resort staked. I've spent decades out of Hunters Point and other locations around Mille Lacs where I'm one of the first ones out with the guys that are actually out there staking, and we're checking every inch of ice. And I can't tell you how many times I've walked out with a spud bar 6 or 7 miles, just making sure that the ice was safe for my customers. And having a buddy like you or somebody that wants to jump in with you to go out and do this isn't the most glamorous job. And it isn't always the funnest, but it's better than doing it by yourself, especially on a lake as big as Mille Lacs.
Yeah, I wouldn't do this on my own. I'll just put you that way. I'll go with you, and I feel comfortable doing it with you. And it's kind of a tradition, like over years, even before Dialed In, we've been doing this for years. Some years are a little sketchier than others, but this year, getting out on the ice, it was surprisingly consistent. And like you said earlier, the snow wasn't that bad, and it's going to freeze up good and solid here real soon.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised how much ice we had out there. I would say we're kind of in that 7, almost 8 inch range. Most places we checked. Now we stayed within 2 miles of the shoreline. I wanted to check a lot of spots that I had either fished this fall or that were adjacent to some of the spots I had fished this fall. And we kind of poked around. It seemed like the first spot we went to, we marked a couple, went to the next spot. Our second spot was the best by far. We got there, we caught some jumbo perch, we got some walleyes. We'll give you details into what we were using, but we checked that spot. We had some pretty good success this morning. And then, because it's so new, you almost have to be like, we got to check more, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Enough time has gone by where I forgot that there are jumbos in Mille Lacs, and they're like, oh, yeah, they are in here. So
yeah, and we caught some really nice perch. Yeah. The perch are definitely still in the lake. I know a lot of people are asking like, hey, did we fish them out last winter? No, we did not fish them out. There is a lot of perch out there, and there is a ton of walleyes from 9 to 11 inches. We caught quite a few walleyes today in that range. Anglers are going to see a ton of walleyes being caught in that particular range. And yeah, from our second spot, we went to the third, fourth. We did find some areas with some really nice walleyes, but a lot of times when we hit those, it seemed like we were kind of midday and they were kind of in their midday funk. Today was beautiful. I mean, the fact that it's going to get really, really chilly here starting tomorrow into Saturday and Sunday. But today, I think we started out, it was 0 or 1 or 2 degrees, but with no wind, it felt great.
Yeah, it wasn't cold at all, really. It's very comfortable. So we snuck it in just in time before this weekend starts.
And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a little scouting on Mille Lacs. I always love to fish Mille Lacs. In addition to fishing Mille Lacs this week, though, I was in the Grand Rapids area. I was over by Red. I was over by Leech Lake, and then back to Mille Lacs. So, I checked a bunch of lakes around the Grand Rapids area. I just am so surprised how quickly we made ice, because talking to Remington, we didn't know if we were going to be able to get out and shoot a dial and angling episode this week or not. I had a good idea that we'd have good fishable ice somewhere, but the fact that we only had about 3-4 inches on Thursday before the ice show, and then when I met up with Rem this weekend and we had 7-8 inches, I mean, we were making 2 inches a night on some of those really cold nights, which is just amazing to me that we made ice that quickly. And it seemed like it wasn't just in a couple locations, like everywhere had really good ice. Red Lake, anywhere around Grand Rapids, like everywhere we went, we were experiencing good ice. Now, we still checked every inch of ice and we kind of spud barred our way out. But, for this first dialed and angling episode, we drove the skidoos out. We had 8 inches, almost 9 inches of ice on the lake that we had fished and filmed on for dialed and angling. Pretty impressive considering earlier in that week, I would have been willing to bet there was only 3, maybe 4 tops by Thursday.
Yeah, and I spoke to Red Door at the St. Paul Ice Show, and they said that, what was that, on Saturday? And they said that it had just frozen over like a couple of days before, and here we are, and it's nice and consistent so far, at least to where we went.
Yeah, I mean, we did not go out of the north end, I will say that today, but I was over on the north end poking around, and I found plenty of good ice. Sounds like John from Red Door had experienced some, maybe not less than ideal ice for wheelers and stuff out a little ways, but we didn't experience any of that. We found really good ice. So I think if you are going to Mille Lacs this weekend, I would definitely go through a resort, definitely using the stake paths, and foot traffic's probably your best bet. But if the resort is allowing ATVs or snowmobiles, I think that's safe. For me to be comfortable, I feel a little more comfortable and have about 8 to 10 inches, maybe closer to 10, especially with my bigger UTVs. But I had no problem driving a snowmobile around this ice on this 7-8 inches. It was good black ice. Everything it definitely exceeded my expectations as far as ice conditions.
Yeah, it was really good and consistent. And we kind of scanned around and looked, and a handful of resorts were staking out roads already, and they're working hard, and they're getting ready. And when people show up, it's time to go, and they're ready for you.
The cold months are rolling in, but that doesn't mean the adventure slows down. There's only one way to make the most of winter, with the 2026 Ski-Doo lineup. Whether you're heading deep into your favorite fishing spots or carving your own path off the grid, Ski-Doo is built to take you there. And there's a reason Ski-Doo has been the best-selling snowmobile brand for more than 2 decades. Proven, reliable, world-class performance. Winter moves fast. If you want it, get it.
There is nothing quite like Minnesota winter. Whether you want to try ice fishing, ice skating, or ice boating, make sure you know the risks and how to play safe on the ice. Measure ice thickness frequently and never go out alone. Always wear a life jacket or float coat and have ice picks readily accessible in case you fall through. Playing on the ice can be fun, but it's never 100% safe. Learn how you could play safe before you go out. Safety is always in season. A message from the Minnesota DNR.
So I want to break down this latest episode of Dialed In Angling. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We have fresh ice content. You know, a week before the ice show or a week and a half before the ice show, it was 50 degrees. And we filmed a Dialed In Angling episode. Marcus Quam and I, we were out in western South Dakota. We were on the Missouri River. It was really fun. Marcus took me. We shot some pheasants. We shot our first Dialed In Angling episode so that we'd have something to air December 5th. I had no idea. I was panicking at that point because I thought, okay, well, where am I going to shoot ice content? It's 50 degrees. It's dead flat calm. By the time we had shot some roosters, it started getting cold again. And by the time we hit Thanksgiving weekend, I was like, yes. Thankfully, it looks like temps were going to get cold and stay cold, and they have, and that's where we're at today. And so episode 2, season 3 will drop this weekend. You can check it out on FanDuel. You know, it was great to get out and film ice content and actually be back on the ice. You know, before we got this snow is the time frame we filmed. I mean, we were backed up against the snow. We had to get this episode done before the snowstorm. I was a little bit worried about driving in the snowstorm, but it was sort of bittersweet because when we filmed the episode, we did not have snow on the ice, or very little snow on the ice. And so noise was a major factor when we were going into the episode. And amazingly enough, even today, when Chris and I were out on Mille Lacs with the amount of snow we have, and there's not a ton, but there's enough to kind of dampen the noise. It was amazing how many times we spooked those schools of perch or walleyes just walking around.
Yeah, we had one moment where I was standing still and I was taking the cover off of my sled, and that spooked them.
I know. And, this noise factor, I think it's always been a thing, because I could think back to lakes that I had fished in the past where I was out there in the fall and just crushing crappies on jigging wraps. I come back out there on ice and I'm like, where did they go? They're nowhere to be seen. Or it may be a lake that I hadn't visited since the year before, and I get out there and I'm looking all around with 2D sonar, and I'm thinking, it must have got fished out. And then all of a sudden you hear reports later in the season, oh, they're crushing the crappies on Lake X. Well, it was the noise factor. And the fact that we can actually see it now with forward-facing sonar is pretty remarkable. And so limiting the amount of noise has been a real thing for me. I've really been conscious of noise when I'm ice fishing. The amount of holes I drill when they're spooky, the equipment that I'm pulling over the top of these fish, stomping around, even ice cleats at times, or driving snowmobiles, four-wheelers, trucks, whatever. Early ice in particular, the fish seem to be very, very spooky. And that's exactly what Rem and I encountered when we hit all these lakes. We were pulling up on fish, some of which were in shallow basins, some were shallow, weed lines. I said it at the St. Paul Ice Show in this last podcast that I fish a ton of fish in shallow vegetation. I love using underwater cameras in vegetation. I love catching bluegills, crappies. I've caught walleye shallow this time of year. And so I really wanted to try to film shallow, but because of the noise factor, we were blowing fish out of entire little weedy bays and shallow basins that we knew we had to go a little bit deeper. So when we filmed this episode, Remington and I found some fish that would kind of hang tight in that 24 to 28 foot basin area. But think of that. Fish that are 24 to 28 feet deep are spooking, and they were still spooking when we were out there filming Dialed In Angling. That tells you what kind of impact noise has on your fishing when you're out there.
Yeah, I've spoken to other people who have put GoPros down on Mille Lacs in particular, off the mud. So what is that, 28, 30 feet or so? And then they're trying to get an upshot without any snow on it. Pretty cool looking shot. But at the same time, you can hear them walking around. So we heard the audio and you could hear them walking around, or you could hear the sled start up and move. And it's incredibly noisy, actually.
Yeah, ice cleats. I encourage people to wear ice cleats, obviously, when there's no snow. I've seen too many people take diggers when I'm out ice guiding. But ice cleats are incredibly noisy on the ice. Okay. I've also seen like people that have studs in their tires on their wheelers or studs on their tracks on their snowmobiles. Same thing. It's so loud underneath the ice. And
Bachelor parties on Red Lake.
yeah, can you imagine? Okay, the noise factor on Red Lake this coming weekend, or
Yeah.
the noise factor on Lake of the Woods. Now, where I've really learned a lot about fish patterns and movements underneath the ice and their overall moods is with forward-facing sonar when I can watch how they react. When they're in a really bitey mood, they don't care. You can walk over the top of them. You can run to your tip up. You can drive. They don't spook as bad. But when they're sort of in a negative or neutral mood, especially in a negative mood, they will run from you. And that's what Remington and I encountered. We spent countless hours sort of chasing fish around until we could kind of pin them in these couple basins. As a matter of fact, when we were filming Dialed In Angling, we got to the spot. We were like, okay, we're comfortable. There's fish here. Let's just start fishing. We pull up the snowmobile. To your point, we had the GoPros out. We were taking all these cool shots. We were putting our underwater cameras down. We were doing all of this stuff, making all this noise. We blew out all those fish in that basin. We had to kind of like start over again and walk away from the machines. And if you watch Dialed In Angling, I don't want to tease out the whole episode, but if you watch Dialed In Angling, I even reference leaving the skidoos back a little bit further from where you intend on fishing to keep the noise down and not spook those fish. So in doing that, if you're driving up to a spot, keep in mind, if you want to fish a particular point or weed bed or hump or whatever it may be, it's to your advantage to park the machines, let's say out in a little bit deeper water, and walk to that spot, walk to that point of reference. With very little snow on the lake right now, and of course, the sonar sleds we're using and the otter sleds and everything we have today, you can load your stuff in those sleds. And now that we have a little bit of ice, that sled is a lot quieter. When we filmed Dialed In Angling, the sled was almost a factor as well, just because without that snowpack, you could hear, that roto-molded sled on top of the ice. And so to have just a dusting of snow makes a huge difference. So what Rem and I were doing is we were walking around on the snowpack. We were walking with our feet. We dragged the sled with the sonar sled, with the forward-facing sonar. We'd kind of corral these fish around. We worked as a team as well as far as drilling and scouting. I would scout for Rem. He would catch a few. Then he would scout for me, or we would both be fishing. He ended up fishing in the forward-facing sonar pole hole, and then I would be at another hole because a lot of times I would walk to the fish and they'd bounce back to Rem. And so it's just so interesting to watch that whole dynamic unfold. We had a little bit of it today on Mille Lacs where, like you said, when you were just taking the cover off your otter and kind of moving around, it pushed those perch right to me. And earlier this morning, without a doubt, you had the hot hole. I mean, you were catching them.
Yeah. Yeah. But we were sitting still and we weren't making any noise.
But I think where I was drilling around those snowmobiles, if you recall, you were about 20 yards away from the sleds. And yes, we weren't moving around, but you were about 20 yards away from the sleds. I was drilling holes for dead sticks. I was putting things down. I was forward-facing sonar. I was grabbing my Markham out of there. I was trying to drop it in holes.
Cracking a sun-kissed.
I was cracking a sun-kissed. But I was making a lot of noise around the snowmobiles, and without even thinking, even though we have a little bit of snow, those fish definitely were reacting to that.
Yeah, we had that one school of perch, and we just could not stay on top of them. They just kept scooting around, and they weren't scooting a little bit. They were scooting quite a bit. And I haven't seen a school of perch do that. And they were moving around. They didn't like whatever we were doing on top.
Yeah, see, last winter, I encountered that quite a bit because, we had snow, but then it melted, especially late in the season. Everybody that was running around kind of chasing perch they were making tons of noise. And last spring, kind of about the time that they had reduced the limit to 5, I made my last trek out here with my Ranger, and we were dragging sleds around and we were shooting holes with forward-facing sonar and trying to find them. And they were moving at about the same clip as they were today. I mean, you would walk over and you were definitely spooking them. And so trying to find those areas in which it would hold the fish was a real challenge. We experienced that on Red Lake as well for the crappies. That they're moving at a high rate like that. So you almost have to anticipate where those fish are going to move next. And so like today, Chris was whaling on them. This morning, he was doing really well. I wasn't catching him where I was at. We ended up moving and just checking spots because we were getting a little antsy as far as, I always have that problem. It's not that I want to move off of fish, but today was more of a scouting mission for me too. So it's like, well, maybe the grass is, it's green here, but maybe it's really green elsewhere. And so, and it's hard not to scout out here right now when there's not a lot of traffic on the lake. I mean, we drilled holes in every area we went. There was no one had even been there this year.
No. Yeah, the spots that were probably good last year for you didn't seem to be all that loaded up right now. We did see them. They were onesie twosies and sort of spread out.
I was surprised how many spots we actually hit. Had walleyes, but they were really spread out. But that could have been they weren't feeding. We saw how negative some of those big fish were, where they were just cruising along like that one, for example. That was a very large walleye that came through, and we could see it on forward-facing sonar. We dropped down with 2D sonar. Didn't even hardly look at the bait. But
it looked like he was coming right at it. He wasn't.
Right, and that could have been time of day.
Right.
It's hard to say. I mean, with all the fronts we've had and everything we've had so far, midday, I think there's going to be areas out of Mille Lacs, early ice, where you're going to have a pretty good midday bite. But you saw how much bait was out there. We've seen how much bait was out here this summer. We saw today when we caught the walleyes how fat they were. Yep. And so as you get into mid to late season, it's going to be more and more challenging to catch walleyes throughout the day. You're going to be pinned to those peak feeding periods, that morning, evening. If you get some fronts come through, pre-front conditions, you're going to get bites. I think full moons, you're going to have really good bite windows, especially at night, so the wheelhouse anglers can get it. But the fact that you're going to come out and catch a ton of walleyes in that 9 to 12-inch range, some jumbo perch, and then, of course, some big walleyes mornings and evenings, I think it's going to be a good season on Mille Lacs. I really do. I'm very hopeful for this lake, seeing this lake rebound in the way it has, in the manner it has, and the fact that you can keep 3 walleyes, you can keep 10 perch. I think there's going to be a lot of people out here. As long as we don't get bombed on with snow over the next week or so, we're going to continue to make ice. With the forecast that they are predicting for this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if we come back out here on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you see 9 to 10 inches most every location. Now, we didn't scout the whole lake. We only scratched the surface today, so use extreme caution. But I think we're well on our way to having very good ice conditions on Mille Lacs Lake.
Yeah, and it feels that way too. Like it just, there's a ton of snow around. It's cold. The whole lake is locked up. It just, and you see what's coming too this weekend. It just feels like it's going to be a really good year for everybody.
Let's talk a little bit about baits on Mille Lacs. At least the baits we use today. It's hard to get a good reading of what's going to be the hot bait on Mille Lacs because it always seems to change. But like Lake of the Woods and like Red Lake, there's predominant colors out here that work extremely well. And today was no different. I started with the gold. You started with the green UV jigging wrap. I started with the gold tungsten torpedo jig. You used number 5 jigging wrap. I think if you were to look in a store and say, what are my top options for colors on Mille Lacs, we would have nailed it on the head.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know why I pack all the lures that I do. I only use just a few of them on Mille Lacs, really. And it's generally a bowl spoon that's probably Juicy Lucy, or like you said, a number 5 jigging wrap, green UV. And then you get a little mixture in there with the roach spoon, and the pink squirrel has always been a really good one. But I pack just about every spoon I have, and I use about it. I
did not fish a rattle and roach spoon today.
I did
that's
notice
probably
that.
A first for me. That's a hot bait out here. That's a hot bait on Red Lake, Lake of the Woods. That dress marabou, it's just so magical, and those fish can't resist it. Especially if you lose your minnow head, it seems to hold the scent in. I even saw guys last year putting a little scent on there, a little Procure or whatever, and doing quite well. I've caught so many fish without bait with that lure. I refrain from you. Matter of fact, I have not put a roach spoon on all season yet. I have refrained because I really wanted to explore using the nano wrap, which I did last spring, and basically last March, and then I used it on open water, but I wanted to experiment with it in a bunch of locations. So if you look in my rod box right now, I've got nano wraps tied up that I've been using. I've been using the tungsten torpedo spoon almost exclusively for walleyes and having tremendous success with it. Not only as a fish catching bait, I really love that spoon, but I love the fall rate of that spoon. When you're hole hopping outside and dropping that tungsten spoon down,
It gets quick.
it gets down there quick, and you see it on forward-facing sonar, and you see it on 2D sonar extremely well. That tungsten shows up so well. Like when you see it on forward-facing sonar, it's like a vapor trail that comes down. It's amazing how quick that thing falls. And what's cool is like today when we're like, okay, there's a few fish over there, and we were trying to drop on them, to get that tungsten spoon down there, I mean, it's like, boom, you're on top of them now. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm hole hopping where there's a mark down there, you put the transducer down, and before your bait with a slow fall rate gets down there, that fish is gone.
Yeah, we had an example of that today where you caught a really nice perch and said, hey, get over here. They're still there. They're still down there. I had maybe 20, 30 feet to get to you. I dumped it down, and I made it just in time and caught another really nice perch. So
I know I did get you to convert from the jigging wrap later in the day. I'm a huge jigging wrap fan, early ice and lax, and a huge jigging wrap fan in general. All times of year, whether it's summer, whether it's for panfish. I mean, jigging wrap is just the reason that it's one of the number one selling baits on the planet is because it works. But again, for me to get comfortable using all of our new product line, I've been pumped about this torpedo spoon just because of the fact that I can get it down there. And when I've said it on this podcast, when I'm out scouting and fishing outside, I need a bait that gets down there extremely quickly. I want to get to those fish quickly, start fishing and catching fish, or at least trying to get a reaction out of them to see what kind of mood they're in. And we did that today. We were going to locations where like, oh, here's a few here. We found out pretty quickly that their mood was pretty sour, but it was nice to be able to fish fast.
yeah, if you can't convince them with a jigging wrap on early ice, then they're moody. And then you're right. You make a switch, and the torpedo spoon was that switch today. And it was awesome.
You know, we caught some pretty nice perch. I'm excited because I love those combo trips. I love fishing Leech Lake. I love fishing Winnebagosh. I love fishing Devil's Lake. I love fishing Lake of the Woods. I love fishing Mille Lacs because I like those combo trips. You know, Lake of the Woods is really coming online with some really nice perch right now. Mille Lacs, obviously, the perch boom from last year is continuing into this year. We're seeing a bunch of smaller perch that are, I would say they're not quite jumbos yet, but by next season, those are all going to come online as jumbos. So Mille Lacs is really emerging for this great perch destination once again. And so I love these combo trips where you catch perch and walleyes. Winnebagoshes and Leech Lake, Mille Lacs, they're all prime examples where you go out walleye fishing in the morning. As soon as it slows down, especially midwinter, you can go chase perch all day long. And then as soon as that sun starts getting low in the sky, you're right back to that same spot where you caught those walleyes. We sort of did that today. We circled back to our second spot and went back to where we caught fish, where we saw fish. And when we got back there, we caught jumbo perch and we caught walleyes.
Yeah, they were circling around, and they're just sort of, I mean, it's a large area, but they're definitely staying in that area, and they're just circling around, and we just sat and waited them out.
I think if we would have just went out there, set up the otter, and sat there all day, at the end of the day, if you would have fished peak feeding period, midday for perch, and then, you know, that evening walleye feeding bite, I think it would have been a really good bucket of fish. You know, you kept some perch. We threw all the walleyes back. Chris wanted to make some fish tacos, which I don't blame him. Those perch look delicious. But at the end of the day, you know, we caught eater walleyes. We caught perch. I think if you were keeping fish, you would have had a really nice bucket of fish.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And perch is my absolute favorite. It always has been. So
I think it's everyone's favorite. I mean, it's hard to resist. Like if you take a person that says they don't like eating fish and you cook them perch, fish tacos like you're going to do for your wife,
they're going to like it.
they are going to like it.
Yeah, they're just going to like it. Yeah.
They will absolutely love it. Whether you fry perch, bake perch, fish perch tacos, they're absolutely delicious. They're one of the best eating fish on the planet, bar none.
Yeah, and these are, I mean, they're jumbos. They're really large here, so you can keep 4 or 5, and I mean that's plenty for my wife and I. So, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean, limit's 10 now, so keep 10 perch. I mean, that's a lot of fish, especially with these big jumbos. But you couple that with a few walleyes you can keep. Yeah, it's going to be a good year on Mille Lacs. I love the fact that we're getting not only ice conditions reports from people, but we're getting fishing reports. Now, I'm going to touch on a few more, and then I'm going to turn it over to our contributors. We got a lot of talk about a great network of people contributing to Dialed In Angling and Dialed In Angling podcast. We're getting fishing reports from some really good guides, some really good anglers across the state, across South Dakota, North Dakota, all over the Midwest. As other locations start coming online, we're going to start having fishing reports from those areas. It always seems like from year to year, like some sort of storyline will start emerging from a particular body of water, whether it's Devil's Lake or last year's Mille Lacs perch, 2 years ago, Red Lake crappies. You know, there's always sort of these storylines that emerge, or a really good bite that is just, you know, everybody has to, you know, experience throughout the winter. And we're going to get those reports from those people. And so before I turn it over, I just want to give a quick report on Red Lake. I know up until Sunday, you know, the first few days of fishing on Red Lake, it seemed like it was a little bit slow. I think the water was a little dirty. You know, as Red Lake freezes, the water gets churned up, or just before it freezes, you know, it's always windy and nasty in November. That lake gets churned up. Almost every time I go to Red Lake, like super early ice where we have to walk out, it's always just meh. The bite's okay. It's once that sediment and stuff sort of settles down and that water starts to clear up, that bite gets electric. And that's what we're experiencing right now on Red Lake. If you talk to anybody that's been up there over the last, basically since Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of this week, so the week after the St. Paul Ice Show, the bite has turned from okay to absolutely electric.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. All that sediment has settled down and the water's cleaned up quite a bit.
A lot of mid-20s fish, a lot of fish that are in the keeper slot. I've been seeing lots of pictures on social media, even my buddies that have been up there that have their 4-fish limit and got it pretty easy. I talked to a friend yesterday. He said the morning bite was slow, but then it picked up in the afternoon and he did really well. I talked to some guys that on Monday, they caught 30 walleyes. On Tuesday, they got 60. So when those fronts were rolling through, that bite just got crazy good. And I would imagine even up until this weekend, it's going to get good. Now, the challenging part about this weekend is staying away from the crowds. The crowds are always a factor on Red Lake, or any lake for that matter. You start getting that much noise. We talked half the podcast about noise. You have people all around you making noise. It's just going to push those fish out of those locations. Another place I want to talk about, and we've got some fishing reports coming from Lake of the Woods as well, but Lake of the Woods is on fire. They've got Adrian's access is open to ATVs, UTVs, snowmobiles. They're going out past Pine Island. They're fishing out past the gap. And it seems like 21 to 25 feet seems to be the best. But I have friends up there right now that are absolutely pounding them. They're literally sitting in one spot. They flipped the otter over. They didn't move for a whole day, and they were getting 80, 90, almost 100 walleyes and saugers combo. Now, that's all sizes. There's a really, really good year class of small saugers that are in there right now. But there's actually a really good year class of eater walleyes. And so the numbers are off the charts. That's a destination. Like if I'm looking at extreme cold temps and I want to drive my UTV out on the ice, or I want to rent a fish house from one of the resorts up there, I'd be calling them. They got the trackers out right now. All of the guides and resorts are running full speed. And that would be a destination that I could go to, and you could sit when it's 20 below inside a heated shelter or a portable and catch fish.
And all summer long, it was an epic big walleye bite. So keep that in mind too. They didn't go away. So
Yeah, big walleyes on that south shore. There was so many big fish that were just out past Pine Island, up towards, that whole south shore seemed to be just littered with monster walleyes. And so go up there, catch some eaters, pop a couple big ones, sit in a warm shack. That doesn't sound too shabby to me.
No, that's what it's all about.
Well, Chris, thanks for doing the lake tour with me today. I really appreciate it, buddy. You always need a friend, someone you can lean on. I always preach that if you're going out early ice, you're going to body water for the first time, bring a friend.
Yeah. Yep. Bring a Tony.
Bring a friend and, do a little scouting or whatever. Safe, early ice is never safe. Ice is never safe in general, but early ice in particular. Bring a friend out. Riding those snowmobiles, though, that made my day. I always like being on sleds. Sleds, if you encounter slush or anything, you hit the throttle. And I like being on snowmobiles a lot better than I do four-wheelers or UTVs.
They're just much more comfortable. It's just nice to have snow and then be on a snowmobile. It just is.
It is. And it's good to see a little bit of snow here. I'm glad that the snow didn't impact this body of water. Sounds like it didn't impact a lot of bodies of water. Our guides and experts that'll be giving fishing reports, they're going to talk about the snow. They're going to talk fishing reports. They're going to talk ice conditions. We're going to have reports all season long from the experts. So thanks for tuning in. Here's the fishing reports. When we come back, I'll recap the episode, but the reports are here and they're flowing in. The ice season is here and it's upon us, and I love it. Stay tuned. OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you are after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike, giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip and more. OnX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download OnX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water.
Runnings Home, Farm, and Outdoor stores are celebrating 78 years, serving 90 local communities across the Upper Midwest, the Northeast, and America's Heartland. Runnings has everything you and your family need for your home, on the farm, and in the outdoors. Lawn and garden, hardware, farm and ranch supplies, sporting goods, housewares, snacks, and everything for your pets. Go to runnings.com to find one of the 90 locations near you, or shop online anytime at runnings.com. Runnings, your home, farm, and outdoor store.
It's that time of year again, anglers. Winter is here, and L&M Fleet Supply is ready to make this your best season ever. Head into your favorite L&M Fleet Supply location across northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, or Michigan's UP, and browse the extensive collection of DeWalt tools and accessories, all guaranteed tough. Cut through the thickest ice with DeWalt's 20-volt drill. Brighten your setup with the assortment of 20-volt portable LED lights. And stay entertained with the DeWalt Bluetooth 20-volt speaker. It's weather-resistant, rugged, and ready for any adventure. Check out DeWalt's guaranteed tough deals and more at L&M Fleet Supply. Together, they're the perfect match for all your ice fishing needs.
Josh Bullivant here with Trappers Landing Lodge on beautiful Leech Lake. Current ice conditions on our end of the lake, we are seeing 7 to 10 inches, and that is all the way out to at least Pelican Island. Was able to check that out. There are some ice heaves starting to form off of Pelican Island like they always do. We received 7 inches of snow last night. Supposed to have some wind blow that off and some good cold temperatures in the negative 20 range coming this weekend. So we should be able to grow some ice, heal up some of those cracks right now. Over in the Walker Bay area, we are seeing reports of 2 to 10 inches of ice over there. The deep area of the lakes, definitely where you're going to want to look out with that thinner ice. Check ahead as you're going out on the lake right now. Look ahead, look for those wet spots in the snow. Let this cold weather maybe come in and heal up some of those cracks, and then it should push down and continue to build some ice through this weekend. Walleye fishing on our end, want to look in that 12 to 15 foot range right now. find those first breaks, little rock piles right off of them, or even the nice big sand flats with some weeds, and you will find some walleyes this time of year. So good luck. Make sure you're safe out there and check ahead while heading out on the lake.
Hey, this is Marcus Kwan with Real Therapy Guide Service out of Webster, South Dakota. Our ice report's pretty decent right now. I think we're sitting on 4 to 6 inches pretty consistently, it sounds like, with maybe a few spots topping out at 8. We missed the snow. We got a little bit of rain, but it kind of melted everything down. So with the weather coming in, these cold temps, it looks like everything's going to, firm up and be really good, and we'll be making ice, and we'll have the snow bears out shortly here.
Hey guys, Brandon Olson here with Lockjaw Guide Service with an Otter Tail County Fishing Report. What a great start to the season we're getting with 7 to 11 inches of really good, clean ice. Travel's pretty easy right now. We did just get 5 inches of snow, but it's pretty light and fluffy, and it's pretty easy to get through it. Most of our lakes, like I said, are 7 to 11 inches. Obviously, I can't check them all as there's 1,000 lakes in our county here. But fishing has been really good from what we're hearing. 8 to 15 feet of water for walleyes in and around the weed beds. And bluegills and crappies, there are some up in the shallow weeds, and we're seeing some out in the basin as well. Please be careful as you venture out. Remember, this is still early ice. Bring a friend, bring a spud bar, plan ahead for a safe and fun time on the lake, and can't wait to see you guys out there.
Hey guys, Nate Brown here from McCardle's Resort on Lake Winnebagosh, giving you our most current ice condition update. Most of the lake is seeing about 6 to 9 inches of ice. There's a few groups of guys getting out there doing a little spearing, a little angling. We do have heaves in some of the traditional areas that Winnebagosh puts heaves out there. Over the last couple of days, we've gained about 8 inches of snow. That's been blowing around a little bit and kind of hiding some of those dangers. So be sure to check with your resorts and your local bait shops so they can help get you out there in the safest way possible and get out there and enjoy yourself. Good luck.
Well, the bite is on up here at Lake of the Woods. Early reports this last week have shown walleyes are biting in 18 to 28 feet of water along the South Shore. Our colors, gold, glow red, and pink presentations are producing, and my best luck's been on the VMC's Juicy Lucy Torpedo Spoon. I've been tipping it with fatheads or a shiner for maximum action. Secondly, I'm running a dead stick on a second line, continues to put fish topside throughout the day. Anything glow has been working great. Ice is improving with the most resort maintained roads are reporting 7 to 12 inches of ice, and the area largely missed the recent heavy snowstorm, making our travel and lake access is a lot easier to use. Resorts are already pulling ice houses out with their small 4x4 vehicles, and reports from up at the Northwest Angle are looking great as most of the trails and resorts plan to open up after Christmas. Along the South Shore, pike are active in the shallow bays. We're seeing them on tip-ups. And perch are showing up as bonus catches as the walleyes are definitely hungry on the South Shore. Overall, the bite is trending upwards. Ice travel is getting better, and it's a perfect time to hit Lake of the Woods. Stay safe and tight lines.
We are back. Hey, Dial It Angling fans, if you're looking for the perfect gift idea with the anglers in mind, you're going to want to check out gift cards from fishusa.com. Take it from me, I am an angler that loves to fish, but I also love getting fishing gifts. Nothing better than a gift card where I can pick out my own gifts, hot ticket items that I really want for this season with the Fish USA gift card. Check them out at fishusa.com. Well, let's wrap up this podcast. Once again, I want to thank Chris Britton for toting around with me on Mille Lacs Lake, Remington. Thanks again, buddy. I really appreciate it. I encourage you to tune in to Dialed In Angling and watch me and Rem, how we dissect this crappie bite for early ice. It was awesome to be out on the ice. It was awesome to be on the ice with Rem. It was awesome the fact that he went out early and did some scouting and checked ice conditions for us. And then him and I got on the fish. We actually fished an area where this summer my son and I had caught some really big crappies. We went out there. We looked and looked and looked. We got into an area and got on top of them, and we'll show you how to do it. So you got to tune in to this week's episode Episode 2, Season 3's here. We are on the ice. I couldn't be more excited. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Thanks for watching Dialed In Angling. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach, and this has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast.